Hello, 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 everyone. How are you today? I am Zakia Monique, Master Relationship Strategist, and I'm so excited to be here tonight to talk to you about African American mothers being, whether they're coddling their sons while abusing or being harder on their daughters. But first of all, I want you to like, share, and subscribe. Don't keep this goodness to yourself. I love to talk about topics that maybe others want to stay away from for lack of being politically correct. I'll put it that way. But I want to talk to you tonight about, are African American mothers harder on their daughters while coddling their sons? And let me say this, this is a disclaimer. I don't want you to think that this is only for African American mothers, because this is really for mothers in general, but the claim has been made against African American mothers. Okay? So it has been said that African American mothers are harder on their daughters, are abusing their daughters, but they are coddling their sons, and as a result, what's been said is that the sons are soft. The sons are, in some instances, they even say gay. The sons are not producing at a level of, where men should be when they get older. So, in other words, they're basically saying that the African American mother is ruining the son and then making the daughter super hard. Okay, and that's what's being said. So I would welcome your comments on that, if you believe it's true or not. But I want you to just take a listen to this live stream and just have an open mind, as I lay out my perspective for you and with you. Now, again, like, share, and subscribe, because we're trying to grow this channel. We're trying to get the information out. And so I just depend on you to help me do that. So let me talk to you today about what I heard on Clubhouse. So I was in a room with a femininity coach, and she had a very interesting room that talked about people who are benefiting from the African American family structure being just fragmented. Okay, so she was talking very passionately about how many organizations, how many people and groups of people are benefiting from the African American family not being intact. Okay, and it was disheartening. It was hard to hear, but it was true. It was true. Um, I believe that many African American females have bought into the concept of thinking that independence is true freedom. Now, I think they've played on our fears. They've played on some of the dysfunction in our communities. We've watched our grandmothers and our mothers be in very unhealthy relationships, and they were depending on the man. And so as a result, they could not leave because they didn't have the means to do so or the support to do so. And so as a result, what ended up happening is they stayed and they were abused or they weren't treated well. And so when we were children, we said in our mind, we're not going to let anybody do that to us. We're going to make our own money. We're going to do our own thing. And society came along and said, yeah, you ain't got to take that. You don't even need a man. Okay. And if you're not American, you're not African American, just hold tight. I'm getting to something that'll apply to you in just a minute. But what ended up happening is we started saying, yeah, I'm independent. I don't need no man for nothing. And our families started to break away and just, just start to delve into dysfunction. She talked about how nobody wants to hear the stay-at-home concept anymore, and how she had been verbally attacked for even talking about being submissive in that way. She talked about how we as African American women have to work harder. And even when we do, we very rarely get the increases. We very rarely get those promotions. We very rarely even get the recognition sometimes that our counterparts will get. She talked about how the government structure and how so many others are benefiting from the broken structure of the family. And so, of course, it doesn't behoove them to push for it. Right. So, in other words, she said, if we want to be saved, we're going to have to save ourselves. Okay. And meanwhile, we think we're getting ahead because we're making more money. Meanwhile, we think we're getting ahead because we're able to buy bigger houses and cars and things that we want. We think we're getting ahead, but we don't stop and think that we're getting blamed for so much of the dysfunction that goes on in our neighborhoods. So much of the dysfunction. We're called angry at work when we disagree. We're unfit at the schools when we can't make the parent teachers conferences because we're working 2 and 3 jobs, or we're working one job for 90 hours, 100 hours. We're being called unfit in the home because we can't be there with our children all the time, and go to all of their soccer games and everything because we're working all of these jobs and things of that nature. So even though we're getting this, we got this newfound independence, and we have this new all of this stuff, it's coming at such a huge cost. And so now I get back to what the subject matter at hand are: the African American mothers coddling their sons, but damaging their daughters in a sense. And so what I want to say to that is, I'm talking in a sense today about healthy relationships, healthy mothers. I'm not talking about the mothers that are out here competing with their daughters. I'm not talking about the mothers that are wounded and teaching their daughters to hate men, because there are some that are going out there. So when I'm speaking about my perspective and my answer to the question, I want you to keep in mind that I am not talking about the mother that teaches her daughter you don't need no man. No, I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about the mother who has realized the error of her ways, and maybe she lost her husband. See, every time you have a single mother, it doesn't mean that she did something wrong or picked the wrong man. Maybe her husband died. That's the first thing I want us to get out of. We often think she just did something wrong. She just went and had a whole plethora of kids, and that's not always the case. And sometimes just because you're a single woman does not mean that you're a single mother. I am not a single mother. I'm not a single mother. I have a son. His father's not in the home, but I'm not a single mother. And so we have to understand that every single woman does not mean it's a single mother. That's the first thing we need to understand. Second of all, it may not have been her fault as to the circumstances that lended her to become, in the situation that she's in. But here's what I'm saying. I'm talking about healthy mothers at this point. They recognize, if they were in toxic relationships, they recognize the error of their ways. My answer to the question is no. No, they're not coddling their sons and damaging their daughters, not healthy mothers. But let me tell you what is happening. Let me tell you, and I have a son and I have a daughter, so I can speak from this, from this end. My daughter is currently 23 years old. Okay, so I have a daughter, and we've gone through the teenage years and all of that, so I can speak to this. Well, here's the thing. When my daughter was in her teens, something happened where she started to want to come from up under a certain level of my guidance. And the ordinary structure, now I was a single parent with her because her father was not consistent and was not in her life the way that he should have been. And he'll even admit that. So it's not bashing, not at all. But what happened was she started to get to a certain point in her life where she thought she knew a little bit better than I did. And here's what people don't understand. Her dad was not in the home. Okay. And so, of course, in the home, typically what happens, if you've ever read up on Oedipus Elector syndrome, what you will know is boys have a certain connection with their moms, girls have a certain connection with their dads. Okay, that's why they say the girl always has the dad wrapped around her finger, and the boy and the mom, they just have this love affair. Oedipus Elector will explain that to you. Oedipus Elector will explain that to you. Now, what happened is, when the father's not in the home, then it makes things one-sided. If the mother's not in the home, it makes things one-sided, because the mother is the one that gives the love and the nurturing and all of that to the son, because the father is giving him the hardcore. But when it's a girl, it's the other way around. The mother is her first example of womanhood. The father is her first example of love. And so he coddles her and he gives her all of the love and he pats her up and he says, "You're my baby and I love you and nobody can ever date you," and all of that type of stuff. That's what dad does. Meanwhile, mom equips her for the world. Now, if you think about the sons, when the father's in the home, the father equips the son for the world. That's his first example of manhood. And the father then becomes the first example of love for the girl. So to the question, are the African American mothers coddling their sons while damaging their daughters? You're only damaging your daughter if you are bitter, if you are wounded. But I'm not talking about them when I'm answering this question. The answer is no. We're not supposed to be their first example of love. We're not supposed to be the one that pats them up. We're supposed to be the one that prepares them for womanhood in this world. Now, how we do that is very important. We're not to gift them all of this toxicity, but that's why I said it has to be a healthy woman that's doing this. But we also have to be realistic because as an African American woman, it is hard out here. But that does not mean that we have to be hard. It does not mean that we have to be hard, but we have to know how to stand up for ourselves. We do, because I do believe that we are one of the most unprotected. We are. But whether you're African American or not, you're going to be told that you're, as a woman, you're harder on your girl than you are on your boy. But that's simply because that's not your job. It's your job to be soft to him, and it's your job to be tougher on her to get her ready for things to come. But it's supposed to balance, and because the African American household is so disfragmented, because the African American woman 9 times out of 10 is single. In so many occasions, she's single. She's a single mother in many cases. Because of that, it is unbalanced. So you have the mother in the home. She coddles the son. No husband's there to give him the toughness that he needs. The mother is in the home. She's tough on the girl in terms of just getting her ready for the world and letting her know, hey, you got to be able to protect yourself or whatever. And what happens? There's no father there to balance out the love. The problem is not with just the mother, unless she's unhealthy. The problem is the unbalance in the household, because the father's not there to coddle the daughter and balance out the hardness, if you will, of the mother. And the father's not there to give the toughness to the son and balance out the coddling from the mother, if you want to call it coddling. I call it nurturing. Fathers nurture their daughters. Mothers nurture their sons, but there has to be another component. And that other component comes from the other parent. This is why there is a need for both parents in the home. And if not in the home, there is a need for both parents in the life of the child. But I'm so disheartened that African American mothers always are accused of not being enough, of not giving enough, of not having enough, of not doing enough, of not being concerned enough, not caring enough. We do nothing well according to society, and we get blamed for everything. But in this instance, I want you to understand that while we have made some poor decisions because we didn't know what to look for sometimes when it came to love, we didn't know what to look for. What I want you to do is, number one, forgive yourself, and number two, start making good decisions that will put you in a different perspective, that will be a different, along a different, change the trajectory of your life is what I'm trying to say. So that you can make better decisions, so that your children can reap a better future. But I do not want you to carry the grief that comes with you feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm failing my children. Here's the thing. It's not just on you as the African American mother to give them everything. Their fathers need to be present, even if not in the home, in their lives. And we have to do the work not to be bitter, okay? Because some of us are bitter and some of us don't want to see them do well without us. We have to get over that hump of what should have been or could have been between us. Even if he did you wrong, you have to find a way to get closure with that situation so that he can then be in the child's life if he so chooses. And if he does not choose to be in that child's life, then you can still prepare yourself for someone who will. See, here's what we don't understand. Just because the father opts out does not mean that we cannot prepare for God to send someone else who will be a mentor to that child. There are so many bonus dads out here who will come and who will bless the child's life. There are many people. Look at Shaquille O'Neal. He said his stepfather came and was everything that he needed him to be. And so just because the father, the biological father, is not there doing what he's supposed to do does not mean that all is lost, does not mean that you have to just give up, does not mean that you have to just be bitter and by yourself forever. No, you can get it together. You can heal and then you can prepare for who God has for you. Even if you've made some mistakes in the past, even if you didn't choose right, forgive yourself, heal, and then build with someone else who can then impact your child's life, who can serve as a role model to your child. But you have to first do your work. You first have to do your work. But I wanted to come today and just say, no, that's not true. Healthy African American mothers are not damaging their daughters. We may be a little overzealous sometimes. We may be a little overzealous in the way that we prepare our daughters because of some of the pain and hurt that we've been through, but we're not damaging them on purpose. Now, I will say that we do need to stop being so hard and understand that some of the lessons that we're teaching them are coming from our actions. And so we do want them to understand that it is okay to be independent, but it's also okay to be submissive. We can do both. And that was the one thing that I wanted to say in the clubhouse today, was that the reason why so many females do not want to be submissive is because they believe that, first of all, we haven't seen good examples of submission. Okay? When our grandmothers were submissive, our grandfathers had kids everywhere. When our mothers were submissive, we watched them get beat. Or that, so we haven't always, as collectively, we haven't seen good examples of submission. Okay, we haven't seen good examples. And so what happened is, when the man dropped the ball, the woman pick it up and say, let's go. I ain't got time for this. And so we see her being the head all the time, and we think that's what we're supposed to do. But when a man comes, we have to be soft enough to allow him to lead us. And if you don't trust him to lead, you have no business with him. You have no business with him. But African American women are not damaging. Not healthy African American women are not damaging their daughters. And yes, they are nurturing their sons, but coddling their sons, no, we don't do that. We teach them how to love a woman. We teach them about love. We teach them through our nurturing. But the only women who are coddling sons and damaging daughters are those who have root issues, which is why I have this channel, which is why I have the business that I have, because until you get to the root of your issue, you will never change the fruit of your issue. If you do not like the results that you're getting in your children, in your life, in your romance with your parents, then you have to change the root. There's no way around it. It's no way around it. So when you're healthy, you do not damage your daughter. You prepare them. When you're healthy, you do not coddle your sons. You nurture them. But when you're unhealthy, you will damage your daughter, because you will teach her that you can't depend on a man. You'll teach her that. You'll teach her that all men are bad through your actions. You'll teach her those things. And you'll teach your son that he don't have to work. He don't have to do this, because you're going to take care of him and make sure he's okay, because you just love your son. And so ultimately, it depends on whether you're talking about a healthy woman, healthy mother who has done her work, or someone who's still wounded, bitter, and dealing with all of the pain that they've been through. And so I just wanted to lend a different perspective on this, because again, we get blamed for so much. We get blamed for so much, some of which we've put our own selves in those predicaments, but some of those situations we have not. And it's time for us to forgive ourselves, to heal, and to build. And that's all I wanted to come and say today. Forgive ourselves, heal, and build. And it's not too late to do what you've always wanted to do. It's not too late to even reestablish things with your children, unless they're grown. But it's not too late to reverse the curse. It's not. And so I love you guys so very much. I didn't want to make this long, but I just really wanted to come in and talk about this from a different perspective. It is not just the African American mother's responsibility to make a child. So you can't say it's all on her. It is really the father's absence that's really making the biggest impact on how our children are turning out. And that's really what this whole situation is about. Not just the mothers, but the fathers as well. So I love you guys so very much. Let me know in the comments what you think about this situation. I talk back to you even after we're not live anymore. But let me know what you think about this situation with regards to African American mothers, and do we coddle our sons and damage our daughters? Let me know what you think, and I'll be happy to hear your perspective and to actually even talk back to you. I love you guys so very much, and I want you to have a great day. You already know how. On purpose. God bless you.